we went out to a World War II veteran's house and we helped clean up his yard. We do this sort of thing every now and again. Really fun as a team. It's a great experience. This is what it looked like. And it was very overgrown. So we're helping like trim trees, we're mowing the grass, all kinds of work like that. A lot of work. And there was so much foliage and bushes and all these plants and everything all around his house. So we're trying to cut those down. And David, one of our developers, who's pictured right here with a cool do-rag that he made for some reason, he was in the midst of all these bushes up front. And we said to him, whoa, 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 David, be careful. That is poison ivy. And David said, no, it's not. This is not poison ivy. I know what poison ivy looks like. And we got into a little debate over it, and we said, no, I think this is poison ivy. Like, you just steer clear of this. You don't even have gloves on. I mean, you can remove it later. And David said, that's not poison ivy. I am very well aware of what poison ivy is. That's not poison ivy. And so we kind of argued about it. And finally, David said, look. And he reached down and grabbed a bunch of it, pulled it out, and rubbed it all over his face to prove the point it was not poison ivy. I wish I would have a picture of that, but I don't. So in the spirit of AI that we've been talking about, and to better illustrate, I said, make an image of a friendly web developer rubbing poison ivy on his face. And this is what it generated. So it kind of looked like this. Well, we ended the day. We got everything cleaned up. It was a great experience. This was a Friday. Everyone headed home for the weekend. Saturday, then Sunday happened. We received an email from David. It was sent out to the entire team. Its subject line was very simple and very clear. I took a screenshot of it all those years ago, and I still have it. And it said, I was wrong. It was poison ivy. We did not see David that week. He was not in good shape. But we had some good laughs about it, I got to say. And David is a good sport about it. To be fair, I asked David if I could tell that story today, and he generously gave me the permission. So, David, thank you very much. Let's give him a hand for his humility. Yeah. He's back there. It's like everyone's so proud of, yay. A big mistake back then, but now it's benefiting us through the storytelling. So thank you, David. So David rejected new information. He was not interested in it. And we see that problem too sometimes with a lot of companies that have websites that are kind of stuck in the past. They're doing these marketing tactics from 5 years ago. People are looking at websites the same way they used to. And if you continue to do that, you're going to be left behind your competitors. And so that is the topic we're talking about today. I'm going to start with a short history lesson. Does anyone know what this is? It's a website. Anyone know what it is? Or have a guess? You can shout it out. Mozilla? No? Good guess, good guess. Anyone else? This is the very first website. You can still go to it. It's kind of cool. World Wide Web. It's kind of funny when you actually read this, but it explains what like that blue underlined text is. It talks about the World Wide Web. Can anyone guess what year this was created? Shout it out. 96? Nope, a little earlier. 89, a little later. Nope. I heard like all these. 91? Yes, 91. Congratulations, you have won an airborne bagel. These are incredible homemade sourdough bagels that I made. Just kidding, Katrina made them. And I'm going to throw it to you now for the entertainment of all. Are you ready? It's like I could easily just walk over there, but I won't. There you go. Nice job. Yeah, fantastic. 1991. Yes, that's correct. So, back then with this first website, the very early web, the whole purpose of a website was to inform. It's kind of like a brochure. That's what websites used to be. And it still is today. That's still a purpose today, but that's what it was all about. After that, websites evolved a little bit and obviously became more robust. and they became more about educating. So this is a website around 1993 it launched. It's called Exploratorium. I don't know if anyone remembers this, way before my time, that's for sure. But this is an example of almost like an encyclopedia type of a website. And obviously we see this a lot now. So the purpose of the website expanded. And then as time went on, it expanded again, and websites meant to entertain started to pop up. This is called Newgrounds. I don't know if anyone remembers this website, but this is an example. It really rose to prominence probably around 98. And this is another purpose of websites around this time. This is Apple's website around the year 2000. And about this time, websites started to pop up just for businesses, for corporations, for entities like that. And the purpose of the website was to demonstrate the band, to be an online presence for that organization. So we've moved on. This is Amazon in 2002. Now, it was around before then, but it really started gaining ground here. And websites started to be more about selling. eBay is another example. These are examples of websites that you could just go and buy a product from. But beyond that, websites started to serve to sell indirectly, like getting leads and inquiries and things like that as well. Now, around 2004 or something, this is a website called Slashdot, and it's one of the first big blogs out there, and it shared a lot of tech information, and it really shared thought leadership. And this is around, so Blue Compass began 2007, a little bit after this, but when we started, this is something we really embraced too, like thought leadership. Back then, websites were pretty much just about the products and services, but we started to discover, man, there's such advantage of sharing your expert's thought leadership, not just claiming you're the expert, but proving it with really great blog articles and content and things like that. So this is another purpose of websites. 2006, this is something you've probably heard of, Facebook. Used to be called The Facebook, but it really started rising to prominence around 2006. Twitter came around in 2006 as well. And websites started to facilitate community in a lot of ways. Now, you might not have a social platform that you own, but today, your website can do the same thing in some ways, facilitating communities. Jump forward to 2010, data collection started to be a big thing. This is early Google Analytics. And this was really incredible. I mean, businesses, companies, organizations like ours started realizing like, hey, every single day that my website's out here, it's almost like a focus group of hundreds or thousands of people because I get to see how people interact with my content, what services they're interested in, what products they're interested in, how much time they're spending. And data is really powerful. With that, we can shape our website differently. We can shape our services differently. And that became another purpose of websites. So if you think about it today, really all of our websites should do each of these in some way. These are all very important things to do. And there's probably a lot more too. But one of the things we're really seeing in the last year or so is a new purpose for websites. And it's kind of an old term, so it sounds weird to use, but it's to broadcast. Your website's purpose now is also to broadcast. This is a little different than we've thought about websites in the past. Usually we think about websites as a place where we want people to visit. We want them to come here. We want them to spend time at our websites. And that's still important. We still want that. But websites should also today broadcast your content elsewhere. Now, I didn't have a good image for this, so I went to AI again and I said, make an image of the Poison Ivy web developer broadcasting content from his website. And this is what it gave me. I thought that was pretty good. So your website is no longer just a destination, it's a broadcast tower beaming content across the web. This is a really good way for us to start thinking about our websites. So what do I mean by this? Let me give you some examples. Here's some destinations that your website should influence. First is search engines. Okay, we've known that for years, but like Katrina talked about, you can see that AI section up at the top, and we've all experienced this. You do a Google search, and oftentimes you get the answer without clicking anywhere. It's a zero-click experience. It shortens the searcher's journey. And a lot of people, a lot of marketers over the years do not like this. They do not prefer this because Understandably, they want people to come to their website, and we all want that same thing too. We want people on our website. That's the best place for them to be. But this is the world we live in, and it is an opportunity if you can get your content in this area up here. So you want your website content to be broadcast and captured by Google and other search platforms up at the top. If you do that, does it mean someone might not click through to your website? Yes. But it still does give you some visibility, and it establishes you as important and an expert because Google decided, hey, this organization, I like their content, I'm going to place it on my website. Google's actually starting to get in some lawsuits because it takes so much content from all of us. You think about it, Google is using all of our websites as its free database. Google costs you money because it sends search bots to crawl your website, which takes up bandwidth, which ultimately you have to pay for. But the pluses can outweigh the minuses. So it's a love-hate relationship with Google. We always listen to Google. We follow Google. We know what Google's up to, but it's a love-hate relationship. We always listen to Google's best practice, but proceed with caution because sometimes Google doesn't tell the truth or changes its mind. So AI platforms are another, and Katrina talked about this as well. But if you can get your content to show up in ChatGPT, in Gemini, and Grok, and Meta AI, etc., that is a good opportunity for you. And Katrina touched on this a bit, but we're finding that traffic sent to your website from platforms like ChatGPT behaves very well. In other words, it's quality traffic because the intent is right. Someone went to that AI platform, they wanted information, they wanted an answer, and they wanted it within that platform, but they found the content so intriguing or interesting that they decided to actually click and find out more. So they are really well primed when they come to your website, and they are more likely to become a customer, a client, to engage with you to do business than probably if they'd find your website on a social media link or something like that. So it doesn't generate as much traffic as something like Google, but it is a big opportunity for you. We want your content to be found by these platforms. It's an opportunity. Business directories, we want your content blasted to business directories. This is Yelp. Yelp's actually growing quite a bit right now, more so than Google Maps, Google Business Profile, surprisingly. But Google Business Profile is another example. These platforms can grab your content and post it. Mapping services, here's Google Maps. There's tons of services like this. These can pick up your content too. And then this one's a little more niche, but this is still something. Content aggregators. This is a site called Meltwater. There's Newswires, but sites like this often will grab your news on your website. They'll grab your press releases. They'll post it. So there's just so many places now that are stealing your content without your consent and displaying it. I don't know if that's good or not, but it is an opportunity for you. So here are some ways you can make your content on your website more accessible to these platforms. The first one, we talked about this already. Hey, create unique original content that's useful to your target audience. I know this goes without saying, that's not very insightful, but it's one of the most powerful things you can do. Think about what your target audience wants. Think about, use personas. Think about the person you're going after. What content would they actually find helpful or useful on your website? It's probably not just about your products or services or what you do. Giving away your expertise is really important as well. So think about what they want and add more of that content. Don't use duplicate content. Don't use AI to write all the content for you and you're not even involved. It takes time and effort, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Organize that content with descriptive H2s and H3s. So in other words, Katrina showed this. Make it super scannable for humans and for search bots. No one wants to go to your webpage and see 1,000 words of text like it's a book. Break it up. Use short sentences and paragraphs. Have subheadings, H1s and H2s, that give you a little preview of what's to come. Just think about how a human looks at it. When you look at a web page, you want to see those little subheadings so you know what content is next. I mean, you want to make it as easy as possible. This sounds like a small thing. People love this. Google loves this. And AI platforms seem to love this too. Bullet points, numbered lists, really short paragraphs, great images throughout. And not stock photos. If you can avoid it, don't use stock photos. Use original images, original content. Quickly create content based on audience and industry trends. Okay, so let's imagine we're a home builder and there's like this new style of home that's starting to catch on. Since you're in the industry, you're kind of on top of the trend, right? You understand that it's maybe going to be a big thing. They're doing it out on the East Coast. This is starting to become a thing. You guys are starting to build that same home plan. If that's the case, jump on it. Go out there on your website, make a page and talk about it, write a blog article about it, reference it, explain what it is. What is this type of plan? Write a H1 or an H2 that asks that question and then describe it underneath. Spend a lot of time and effort on it. Maybe ask one of the experts on your team and put that content out there right away, because people are going to start asking about this type of plan in Google, also in ChatGPT. And if those platforms are going to look out there and maybe you're one of the first to talk about this in depth and you have the best example, that's fantastic for you. So think about, these industry trends better than your customers or your clients do. What can you create content about that's just on the horizon? This is a great opportunity for you. Ensure your website's crawlable with strong links, sitemap, robots.txt. Katrina talked about this. I won't get too into depth about it. But one thing to point out here, think about internal links on your website. This is super simple. It's called the World Wide Web because it's a web of links. That's why it's called that. The more links you can have amongst pages internally on your website, generally the better. So if you're writing an article and you're talking about, one of your service lines, link to that service line. If you're on a service line page and you're talking about a topic that you made an article about, link to that article. It helps search bots, AI bots get around, and it helps people get around your website. So it's a really simple thing, but we've seen adding good internal links to web pages dramatically increase their traffic and visibility in search. Pretty easy thing to do too. Ensure all the info is consistent across all your pages and platforms. We were talking with an organization the other day, and on their Google business profile, they had a different address than they did on their website. I know that sounds really simple, but we run into more people that do that than you would think. That really throws off these platforms. They don't like that. That's confusing. And sometimes Google will change your information if it's inconsistent just to guess what's best for you, and Google doesn't always know. So just make sure everything's consistent. Add proper schema markup on all pages. Katrina talked about this. And kind of a weird last one, consider Bing. Usually people in our industry laugh when you bring up Bing, but ChatGPT, obviously a big AI platform, Microsoft heavily funding it, very involved, and Microsoft owns Bing. So we're finding that ChatGPT follows a lot of the same principles that Bing does. Now, Bing isn't entirely dissimilar to Google, but one thing that is different from Bing than from Google is Bing does not have the resources that Google has. When Google crawls your website and finds errors, it keeps crawling, it keeps looking at things. When I say errors, I mean like coding errors, or not putting an image alt tag on an image, or having multiple H1s. There's just a lot of things that search engines consider errors. If Bing runs across a few errors on your page, it's gone. It's out. It's like, I'm not going to waste my resources on this because I don't have the resources to waste. So point being, fix the errors on your website. That's what it's important. But Bing and ChatGPT actually act pretty similarly when it comes to ranking content. Yes, question.
We have a question from the chat. So when talking about crawlable websites, would websites with a members only login be crawlable past the login, or does that stay private?
That's a great question. It shouldn't be, and it hopefully isn't, because if you have a login, I mean, you probably don't want people or search bots going through that content. And generally, most websites that I've seen will disallow that in their robot.txt area. So in other words, they have like a developer get in and say, hey, you cannot come past this login. That's usually how it works. If your website was poorly developed, it's possible that it can get to that content. I've seen that happen before too. Good answer? Yeah. Okay. I'll take that. All right. So this is a great way to get your content accessible to more platforms, really important. But it's still important to bring people to your website. That's where you want them to be. That's where they have the most greatest likelihood to engage with you. So I said, make the Poison Ivy web developer desperate to get more website traffic. And here's what we got. I think it made an error there. That doesn't look quite right with his arm. He has no hand. But that happens. I'm going to talk about two things. The first thing is mentions. So when Google launched way back in the late 90s, there were all these other platforms that you could do searches on, all these other search engines like Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves, all these platforms. And Google really set itself apart because of one thing, because of the way its algorithm worked. It was different than most other platforms because of one thing. It ranked pages based on links. So search engines before that would use other things like how often is this term used on the page? And that can be gamed. But links are actually a really good way to rank a web page. If someone links to your web page, Google would say, okay, here's another website. They seem to think that what you have to offer is worth sending their visitors to. Therefore, your website, and specifically this web page, must be worthwhile. Therefore, I'm going to rank you a little bit higher. So like the more links a page would get, the better. Then people started buying links and that started to be gamed. So Google changed it to the type and authority of website. Oh, Mac is interested in the bagels. He's like, this is such a riveting conversation. I didn't think anyone would notice me. The people on the camera can't see Mac, so they're like, who's Mac? I'm like, what's going on? So links are still important to Google. They're not weighted the same way they were. There's so many other factors now. Links are still important. Whenever you can get a link to your website from a relevant website, so maybe like someone in your industry or someone you would serve, that's really, really powerful. But today, technology is changing and everything is so smart right now. It doesn't really need a link to know that this person is talking about your organization. So that's where mentions come in. Mentions are really, really powerful. Positive mentions are becoming one of the best ways you can boost visibility with your target audience. What's a mention? I'll give you an example. I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me 10 questions and answers about Drew Harden. That sounds super self-obsessed, but I did it for this example. And it gave me 10 really good questions and answers. And then it actually sourced them. AI doesn't always source things, but thankfully it did this time. And I could see from where all those came from. Most of them were web pages. One of them was, what is Drew Harden's morning routine? And I was like, that's not something I'm like known for or I talk about. Like, why would it give that as an answer? And I read the answer and I was like, that's accurate. Yeah. And it turned out, I looked at the source. It was a old podcast that I had done like 5 years ago. And someone asked me, hey, what's your morning routine? And I told that person. And so it grabbed that mention and it still has it today, which is kind of scary. Question number 5, has Drew Harden written any books? And I'm like, yeah, I've written 2 books. And it said, yes, Drew Harden is writing a book as of 2025 about how leaders can reduce stress for themselves and their team by being bold, confident, and positive. That's true. I don't ever remember telling anyone that. I don't ever remember posting about that. I never said that on a video. I never said that on the podcast. I do not know how it knew that. Make an image of a Poison Ivy developer being creeped out by AI. That is weird. That is weird. But the point is, it's like what you say is forever now. So mentions like that can be really powerful. So now you don't necessarily, I'll go to the next slide so we're not distracted by this image. I feel like the computer's backwards. I can't tell what's happening there. Or there's two computers there. Yeah, let's move on. So here's some ways you can get more mentions for your brand or service. This is really powerful. It sounds simple. It's really powerful. First way is simple. Just create more content on your website. Talk about your products, your services. Create more content, basically. Get industry relevant people to post for you on platforms like Reddit, like LinkedIn posts, and Pulse, LinkedIn posts, which is kind of like a blog. I don't know if you've done that before, that you can write blog articles on LinkedIn. AI platforms seem to like that a lot. X is another platform that's crawled pretty well by these. If you can get someone who's industry relevant, so knows what he or she is talking about, and who mentions your organization or your product or your service, hey, these guys are the best at doing this. Hey, I just engaged with them and had a good experience. That is a mention, and it's powerful. It influences ChatGPT, and it influences other platforms. Get more mentions. If they link to you, even better. But they don't have to link to you. Just mentions are fantastic. Facebook mentions are great. Instagram mentions, all these other platforms are great, but I've never seen personally any of these be referenced in an AI search, but these platforms often are. Create YouTube videos. Great place to get mentions. The thing about audio or video is it's way easier to mention than when you write something, because you can say all these words and just make an offhanded comment. Maybe more dangerous too. But the more videos you can get out there where you're talking about your product or service, the better. And if you can have someone else create a video and they mention you positively, that's fantastic as well. These platforms will pick up on it. If you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, if we have company over here with a product and like people are talking about it on YouTube, people are positively mentioning it on social, other websites are talking about it, and then we have another company over here and maybe they even have a better service, but there's very little chatter about it. I mean, it's just like in here, if we were talking with one another and we're all talking about one thing and not another, all these platforms say, okay, maybe there's something here. These people seem interested and satisfied and happy with this service. And another one is have your experts interviewed on podcasts. This is a great one to do too. Like I mentioned, I mean, that podcast I was on 5 years ago, and I mentioned my morning routine, and it's still out there and it's still being referenced. So this is a really fantastic thing. Our friends, I do a bunch of podcasts. I get asked to do them. It's one of the perks of my job, I guess. Our friends over at Salmon's asked me to be on their podcast the other day, and I'm doing another couple in a few weeks. And that, like, what a great opportunity. Hopefully they got some value out of it. Hopefully I said something useful and that was beneficial for them. But I also got an opportunity just to talk about myself. I talked about Blue Compass. I mentioned Blue Compass. And so that's really good for us too. So it doesn't have to be you. Maybe it's someone else at your organization who knows an awful lot about that product or service. If you can get them to do it, that's a fantastic thing to do too. All right. Next, celebritize your team. This is the next way to get more exposure for your website. Celebritize your team. This is something we're talking a lot about. Really important to do. It all comes down to trust. Trust. Google in particular, really over the last couple of years is emphasizing individuals over brands. Individuals over brands. In October of last year, Google updated its site reputation policy, which is just one of its search policies, and basically, long story short, said, hey, like, don't use third-party content on your website. Create that content. You know, don't use duplicate content, but it really emphasized individuals who create content on your website. So think about how can you associate content with individuals on your website. If you think about it, there's a mechanic out there and he has his own website and he goes out and grabs content that exists elsewhere, third-party content, and he puts this on his website that just talks about the service he does. That's not a great experience. We'd rather hear what he does, what makes him unique from his own words, and that's how Google thinks about it too. This is an example. So Grace, one of our team members, brought this to my attention recently, and she did this search, how often should you redesign your website? And the result in Google referenced me, which was kind of cool. And then it has a link and everything like that. Now, if I would go out there and write about the best 401k strategies, I would not be highlighted here because Google associates me with web design, SEO, all that good stuff. That's more my area of expertise. So think about personal brand for you and the people on your team, and how can you capitalize on that? If I quit today and I went and worked at a financial place and I started writing blog articles about 401k, that would not benefit them. But if I write about this topic, if I talk about this topic, it is beneficial because Google knows it associates these things with me. Why? Because I have an author page on our website that talks about my expertise, who I am. It associates all the blog articles I've written with me. I have my own personal website and it talks all about me there. I post about this stuff on LinkedIn all the time, on like every social media platform. So if you can find people at your organization who are passionate about a topic that's relevant, and they have them post about this, have them write about this, have them interviewed about blog articles, that's really fantastic. So at Blue Compass, we do blog articles about web design, we do blog articles about SEO, we do blog articles about AI, we do blog articles about Google Ads. And we try to associate the right person here with each one. If it was just my name associated with each one, that's kind of too broad. But hey, if Kaylee is associated with schema markup and we're writing articles with that, that's great. She should continue to be associated with that. She doesn't need to be the one to write it. So you don't have to have this person write it. Someone else can write it and then you can associate their name with it. But it's a game changer. Really, really helpful. Here's a few ways to do it that I talked about. And one is just determine each team member's topic expertise. I know sometimes it gets political. It's like this person doesn't want their face on the website. What if this person quits? And try to deal with it as best you can. But what if you sat down and said, okay, here are our 5 main service lines or topics or products or whatever they are, and we're going to associate one person internally with each one. And then whenever an article on our website is written, we're going to have an author associated with that. And we're also going to really encourage this person to talk about this topic and share his or her expertise on social media. That would be really fantastic. So use that author system with your articles and just encourage them to do so on social media as well. And if you think about it personally, like, the reason Google and other platforms want to do this is because we all probably want this too. Like, we would probably rather engage with a brand that has people associated with them rather than just this big nameless corporation or anything like that. This is such a trend today, especially with young people. Why is TikTok on the rise? Especially younger people, they don't want to hear what corporations say or the media has to say or these big entities have to say. If they're going to go buy something, they're not going to go to the website of like a clothing item or makeup or something like that. They're generally going to go on TikTok and see what an influencer that they care about has to say. Like, I want to know what an individual has to say about this. And so that's the whole mentality behind this. So I hope that was helpful. I said, create an image of the poison ivy web developer who just made millions because of his incredible digital marketing best practices. And here's what I got. Wow, this could be you too. So incredible.